Hey, what's up, fellas? I'm Malicious Female Fan, Steve Malicious here, and out of the entire BlackBerry range of phones, when I'm talking about BlackBerry 10, BlackBerry 7, out of the entire range of devices, the one I'm going to mourn the most next January when BlackBerry information services and features start going offline is the BlackBerry Passport. One of the best devices in my mind of the last 15 years, but also one of the most misunderstood. The BlackBerry Passport in 2021, today on this edition of Steve Malicious Tech. We're back, and as always, thank you so much to all the new subscribers, up over 2,700 as of the taping of this video. If you're loving all the old phones, the BlackBerry stuff, celebrating with me the last full functionality year of BlackBerry 10, go ahead and give that subscribe button a tussle. It certainly means a lot to me. So this is my collection of passports. It may get a little smaller, just on a personal note. I got the white one because I always wanted one. This is my original one that I've had for years that I still use every single day. It's just the regular black one, not the AT&T version. And then there's a Quirt Z one that I think might be the one that I eventually sell. I'd originally gotten it as like a backup, just in case parts on this one went bad. I could kind of swap them out and always have a passport ready to go as they get rare. So the only thing, I don't want to get rid of the white one, even though it's not perfect. I don't particularly like the back, the feeling on the back of it. I'm going to keep it because it's different. The only way I would swap out the white one is if I found a red one or something like that, or even the special edition, and I felt like I was really getting an upgrade in terms of a unique device. So a couple things I really want to focus on today, so it's not a 30-minute long video. This is just going to be an aside. Can you still use this in 2021 as your main device? Absolutely. I know some people were having a little bit of trouble with WhatsApp. Up until 2 weeks ago, I was using WhatsApp on this on another SIM. I went to the WhatsApp website, I downloaded the APK, it loads up and works perfectly fine on my BB10, on my Passport. So if you're having issues with that, maybe it's a recent thing, but for me, WhatsApp works perfectly fine. Multimedia messaging works fine. It's still the best email experience of any device on the market that you're going to get, even today. The keyboard's excellent. 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, a Snapdragon 801. When you pair that with BlackBerry 10 is how well optimized it is. You're getting a silky smooth experience. And up until a couple of years ago, the specs on this were really keeping pace, especially when you talk about battery. 3,450 milliamp hours, which really only became the norm along with 3 gigs of RAM 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So it really kept pace for a long time. And the two things I wanted to focus on were the misconceptions about this device and why so many people had issue with it. And why I think that if you went in not thinking correctly about how you were going to use it, you wound up getting disappointed. And I really equate it to the Fold 2, because I think it's a similar story. You had so many people going on YouTube after they got their Fold 2 I don't like it. Oh, it's not what I expect. I don't like the device. I'm returning it and all this other stuff. If you got a Passport, much like if you got a Fold 2, going in and thinking that you were going to be this multitasking maven, that all of a sudden your productivity was going to go through the roof, you're going to be doing 20 things at once, you set yourself up for disappointment. I have never installed WorkWide, the split screen app for BlackBerry 10, on this device once. I have never felt the need to multitask on my Passport despite the temptation of the bigger screen. Because my thought is this: why settle for 2 substandard app experiences at once when you could just have one excellent one at a time? And that is where I think the Passport excels. Don't limit yourself or try to make a situation where you're trying to do 2 things at once. And multitasking on phones in general, I think is ridiculous. I think it is distracting. You're never really focusing on both at the same time. There are very limited use cases where I think you're efficiently or effectively doing 2 things at once. I think it's nice to think about. I think it's something that, like, when we get these super fancy cameras, it's all stuff that, I'm gonna be, and then you never do. and it never works out. But if you focus, much like the Fold 2, and say, listen, I'm going to do what I normally do on a cell phone, but I'm going to have more space to do it in. I'm going to get a bigger, wider experience. I think you enjoyed the Passport. And for my money, I still use this every single day as my email machine. It is a fantastic experience. Second only, really, to the Fold 2. When you start thinking about being able to see an entire email, an entire document with having to pinch and zoom and all the wrap around and anything like that, you get the entire email. You could scroll up with the capacitive keyboard. Nothing getting in the way. Just documents, whether it's Word documents, PDFs, files, anything that you happen to be looking at, web experiences. When Evernote still works fine, back when Twitter worked well, now you use we can't use the web version, but when everything worked on it, you were having, especially Twitter, you were having a better, wider experience, and you were getting more content than you would on just the regular slab phones, especially at the time. And I think when people saw this device as BlackBerry users, there were a couple of things that threw it off. But I think this was the natural evolution, and I hope Onward Mobility is listening, because I know they watch, of course. I think, to me, this was the natural evolution of where these devices should have went. Because you have something like the Classic, and you're like, okay, well, you got all these keys at the bottom. How do we add extra real estate? Oh, we got to make the device taller. I don't think so. I think this was the way to go, to keep that BlackBerry feel, number one, but also add extra utility to the device. Make it wider, make it a bigger screen, make the device a little squatter. And I think that you have a winning combination with that. Maps was a joy to use on it. Anything that you were doing was great on the Passport. The other thing that threw people, especially BlackBerry users, when it came to the Passport, would have to be the 3 rows on the keyboard. Okay, let's talk about the 3-row keyboard. I understand everybody, but be honest with yourself, okay? Because you know some of these people that go back with BlackBerry, they're people who came off the ark with a goat under each arm and their BlackBerry in their hand typing away. I get it. But ask yourself, and be honest with yourself, these extra keys, the fact that everything had to be smaller, the fact that these keys were there whether you needed them or not, was that something that you just got used to and lived with, and you're like, well, I'm used to it now, I don't want to have to change? Or is it something that was actually the most intuitive implementation of the keyboard? Now, be honest now. Did you need a symbol key in every app that you were using? Did you need to memorize like Alt and then have all these other symbols and whatever else and then the... No. This was the natural evolution with the capacitive keyboard of what keys should be. You had exactly what you needed at all times, nothing more, nothing less. And instead of app developers having to sit there and shoehorn functions for these other keys that were there whether they needed them or not, and that was Steve Jobs' big thing when he went on stage, right? When he was promoting the iPhone, and he said there, he's like, these keys are there whether you need them or not. They're stuck there. And if you want to add a new feature, however many months later, you can't run around and pull all these keys off. And he was absolutely right. And with the Passport, BlackBerry said, you know what, that's correct. We're okay lifting some of the better ideas from our competitors. And it provided flexibility for the developer to then say, okay, I don't have to worry about this extra row of keys. So it bought you 2 things. It bought you flexibility with the contextual buttons on the row that you can have with apps, which is the most important thing. Okay, whether you need symbols, they're there. Email, there when you need it, which is great. If you're writing out emails and an email address, you don't have to worry about punching a separate key or having Alt and then finding your symbol for app. It's right there. Question mark, everything. If it's a different app with numbers, those are there. Very convenient. But what it does as well is it provides extra screen real estate. Because instead of, let's say they didn't want to be limited with those features that they would have with contextual buttons, you got all these buttons here that are stuck there, and then you'd have to add a contextual row on top of it if you wanted to add features. So look at how much of the phone is being taken away from you. That's not it. This way, you went wider, which gave you more screen real estate to begin with. Okay? You have just the keys, the ones that you need every single time on a keyboard, letters, space, backspace, enter, okay, the bare essentials. But when you add the contextual row in, it doesn't take away the entire screen real estate of the device. You can still operate freely. It was an evolution. And I understand that a lot of people were stuck in their way to typing on the thing, but if you're thinking about BlackBerry in the future and where it needs to go, this to me seems like it'd be a lot better and a lot easier, and Android developers would be more comfortable getting on board than doing this, right? Where you're limited again, 4 rows, taking up screen, then the capacitive button, then the... Too much. So if they're listening, please, Passport, I think, is the way to go. If you've never tried one because of any of those reasons that I mentioned, or maybe it was just a weird form factor, maybe it's just too bulky, maybe you're somebody who wants to be able to use their BlackBerry with one hand, and listen, that's a perfectly valid explanation on why you never gave the Passport a shot, because you like being able to type and have your content with one hand. I will tell you that, you got bigger hands with a capacitive keyboard, you got a shot one-handed. You do. Smaller hands, maybe not. You need 2 hands. But I'm telling you, if you've never given it a shot in this last year, and you're a BlackBerry fan, BlackBerry 10 especially, because when you're looking at the Snapdragon 801, this is the way that BlackBerry 10 was meant to run. Silky smooth, no problems, well optimized, great operating system, phenomenal battery life, great email, great text experience, great phone call experience. Still have LTE, still works fine, expandable memory, and could still be used perfectly fine as a daily driver. Now, don't be, you're not playing PUBG on it, okay? But if you're doing normal things, if you're doing business, okay, you're taking care of things, you could use this and get away with it. No problem. YouTube, I know people who have commented on the last video. They were using the browser to comment through the browser on the BlackBerry videos, right through YouTube. No problems whatsoever. But if you could get one cheap, listen, they're a little expensive now if you're getting the pristine ones. But if you pick one up cheap, and you've always been wondering, you've always been trying to experiment with it, you're hesitant to pull the trigger, I'm telling you, this is the year to do it. Get yourself the fullest BlackBerry Passport experience that you can. You owe it to yourself if you're a BlackBerry fan. I promise you, if you go in to using the Passport with the right mindset, you will have an excellent experience. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-alicious day.